Thanks for staying with us here on Antigua Barbuda Today. And now today is a very important day, the 14th day of October. It is World Standards Day. And we're going to learn a lot about the importance and the significance of that day because we have here with us the Manager of Information Services at the Antigua and Barbuda Bureau of Standards, Mrs. Solange Baptiste. Ms. Solange, so glad for you to be with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So we'll jump right into it. What is World Standards Day and what's the significance and importance of it, of this day?
Okay, so World Standards Day is an international day that was chosen to commemorate and to recognize the work of standards developers, standards institutions, all who contribute to the wide world of international standardization. Standards are used to monitor the suitability of goods, services. There are other types of if you want to say documents that we refer to as standards, such as codes of practice, guidelines, that are used basically to make sure that life is livable around the world. And without standards, which we use every day, even without thinking about it, life would be a little strange.
Yeah.
Needless to say, life would be a little strange and maybe not as advanced. I mean, technological advancements are, in effect, standards being put into effect very quickly.
Okay.
So we can recognize that every time there is a technological advancement, there is either a standard that's behind it or in the making. And just even how we conduct our lives. I mentioned, for example, codes of practice.
Okay.
So in a service-driven society such as ours, codes of practice, guidelines, these sorts of documentations are necessary to make sure that we can reach the pinnacle of what we offer. So standards are indeed important. They are, inevitably useful and necessary for advancement of life and, of course, for maintaining and sustaining, a good living standard.
Okay. Tell us about some of the key international organizations that are involved in the recognition of this day.
Okay, so there are three organizations that jointly bring recognition to World Standards Day. That's the International Organization for Standardization, known as ISO, which is a word, not an acronym. And then there's the International Electrotechnical Commission, which deals with everything about electronics, electronic technology, etc., and the International Telecommunications Union. So these three organizations, they come together annually, and they put out a joint message. They have assigned a corporation that is in charge of promoting World Standards Day and all the other activities surrounding it.
All right. Now, the key for this year's World Standards Day is protecting the planet with standards. Elaborate on that for us.
Well, there is just so much. There's just so much that is necessary. We would know that, I think, internationally, most, if not all, countries are focused on attaining Sustainable Development Goals, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And in that, there are many that apply to well-being of humanity, well-being of the planet. And so I think this focus would have come from that very initiative of being able to push humanity a little closer towards those things, those standards, those guidelines that would assist us in attaining those goals. Now, we know that generally climate change, global warming, these things are very important. Right here in Antigua and Barbuda, I'm reflecting on our national solid waste cleanup that recently took place, the bulk waste cleanup. And, for me, considering the theme, I started thinking of what else can we do, really, to make this an ongoing and a developmental sort of effort in line of protecting our planet, so far as Antigua and Barbuda is concerned. So there is just so much. There is a whole lot that can be done from the humanity side. What is in our consciousness? Standards help to form our consciousness. Once they're established and they're enshrined in legislation or referenced in legislation, then we have basically no choice in that case than to adhere to, take note of, and to implement. So these are some of the considerations that go into, standards protecting the planet. What next can we do?
And even as you made reference, standards can be enshrined in legislation, but I'm also learning that standards are also for voluntary compliance. Correct?
Well, yes. So voluntary, because many standards are actually driven by economic factors.
Okay.
So we know the word quality, which is, of course, one of the important mandates of the Antigua and Barbuda Bureau of Standards, is to develop quality infrastructure and to promote quality generally for our economic activity and our economic advancement. And so when you consider our consumers, we travel, there is so much on the internet that you can learn about a product or a line of products. So in looking at standards, we understand that if I am making a product, or if we have for example, our hospitality services that we're trying to bring back online, and we attain a specific standard or certification in a particular standard of service delivery, that will only benefit us, because then it makes our service more marketable. So there is that factor. Persons will go out looking for that edge, that difference. And implementation of standards, and even implementation to the point of exceeding those standards. Because yes, a standard might be the minimum requirement. However, of course, once you exceed and you can make those claims and make those assurances and prove it, then, of course, your marketability goes up. So it really should work voluntarily. Sometimes, though, we have to put things in law to make sure that we're doing what we need to do.
Okay. Now, walk us through those broad general steps that an entity would go through in terms of setting standards. What are the best practices there?
Okay, so there are a few steps, as you mentioned, that are important, and this is where this World Standards Day we really want to include the public a bit more. So we are concerned about the fact that we need as wide an involvement as possible in the standards development effort. So standards can be proposed. There are specific ways, yes, at the Antigua and Barbuda Bureau of Standards that we would ask, whether it is a business entity or a regulatory body, for example, or even an individual to propose a standard. You can contact us and we can, of course, guide you through that process, or you can go to our website and see how that is done. So normally it's proposed. The proposal is then submitted to a committee for evaluation, and this evaluation would take into consideration national policy, economic policy, for example, maybe the particular stimulus for this idea, whether it was something that was an emergency, for example, and different things would be put into consideration to prioritize the importance of the standard. Once the proposal has been approved, then there are stages for, of course, the development of the documentation. This is where now we need persons with the technical expertise to, step forward as volunteers and to participate, to really add that technical aspect and be able to give that input. Once the document itself or the specification or guideline is drafted, then it has to go through what we call some of the transparency procedures. So it has to be publicized that a draft is available for comment. There is a call for comments. And this is where we really would invite and engage the public as much as possible. Sometimes we have consultations. The drafts would be put on the website, for example, for persons to willingly go comment according to the guidelines there. And once the comments are received, then of course there's a review process again with that draft, and this goes through at least 2 iterations.
Okay.
At least 2 iterations until the draft is acceptable and can move forward to establish the standard or guideline or code of practice, as the case may be. We do this nationally, but we also work along with our regional organization for standards and quality, and also internationally where we have that opportunity, even with ISO, as was mentioned earlier.
Okay.
So, you know, it is a, how the standard is developed is a standard in itself. And that we adhere to, so that with our counterparts across the region and around the world, we're all following the same process, so that there isn't any question then that, you know, that has been met, so that when the document or the guideline is produced, it is what it should be.
Mm-hmm. So for example, we're here at a television station. A proposal can be made for a standard in broadcasting, correct?
Yes, a service standard, yes.
Yeah, yes.
Or guideline or code of practice. Excellent. I think a code of practice would probably be what it's called.
Okay, fabulous. Now, let's talk about some of the activities marking World Standards Day. Okay,
so this year, this most interesting 2020.
Very much so.
We, of course, are in our own developmental process to make shifts and to do things differently. So we proposed a video challenge. We will be launching that video challenge today for the public mainly, so that we can hear what the public thinks about the theme, which is protecting the planet with standards, and additionally add how such standards affect their daily lives, or would affect their daily lives. And so that video challenge is set to run from today until the 28th for entries. We will have 2 stages of judging, one with a panel of judges to choose the best 5 finalists, and then we are offering the public an opportunity between the 3rd and the 6th of November to actually choose the overall final winner. There will be a link offered at our website that persons will be able to go to and poll or vote for that finalist. So we're looking forward to really hearing some interesting suggestions and inputs, and hopefully down the road, we never know, these persons may be standards ambassadors based on what sort of response we get for this challenge. So that is one. The second activity that we are hoping to bring to the public in the very near future is a webinar on the theme. A webinar where we will get a chance to hear from some of the experts who deal with these issues in terms of protecting the planet. So we're hoping to hear from members from the ozone unit, from our energy sector, and hopefully also from our focal point for our SDGs, our Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the environment, of course, which would be key for this particular theme. So those are the 2 main activities that we are expecting to host over the next couple of weeks.
All right, so where can individuals get more information on these activities and, of course, the activities of the Bureau of Standards in general?
Well, generally, our website, www.abbs.gov.ag. Our telephone number is 462-2424, and our email address is abbs@ab.gov.ag. So persons can feel free to contact us, check the website, call us, and we will certainly set you on your way towards participation.
All right. Solange Baptist, the Manager Information Services at the Antigua Barbuda Bureau of Standards. Thank you so much for
Thanks for having me.
Being with us here on Antigua Barbuda today as we recognize World Standards Day, and of course it's being celebrated under the theme
Protecting the Planet with Standards.
All right. Thank you so much. Stay with us here on Antigua Barbuda today. When we get back from the break, we'll have Steve Freeland Jr. in with another interview this morning.